This is the news in brief from the United Nations. The head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, has reiterated his grave concern that Russian forces continue to occupy and control the largest nuclear power plant in Ukraine, endangering the safety and security of all those working there. In a statement to IAEA governors on Monday, Rafael Grossi said that 5 of the 7 indispensable pillars of nuclear safety and security at the Zaporizhzhia plant have been compromised. The Ukrainian regulators told IAEA that due to the occupation, they've lost control over the facility's nuclear material. Mr. Grossi said although everybody shared the goal of a safe and secure environment at the plant, the urgent need for us to be there is clear to all. He said a solution must be found to the hurdles preventing progress at Zaporizhzhia, and he was working to organise and head up an IAEA-led international mission to the plant. The International Labour Organization, ILO, said on Monday it was deeply saddened by the tragic loss of life in Bangladesh over the weekend after at least 49 died during a fire at BM Container Depot in the southeast of the country. 9 of those who died were firefighters. The UN Labour Agency said the incident illustrated the urgent need to ensure proper handling and storage of chemicals, better training for storage facility employees, and more effective crowd control during emergency incidents. According to news reports, officials say containers of hydrogen peroxide were incorrectly labelled and firefighters used water instead of foam to dampen the blaze. ILO said the tragedy underscored the need for an effective industrial and enterprise safety framework, together with an improved enforcement and training system. This will require improved collaboration and partnership between government departments, employers and worker representatives. And finally, Asia-Pacific countries have endorsed a regional plan of action on sand and dust storms during the recent 78th session of the UN Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific in Bangkok. Elaborating on the plan, Information Management Director for ESCAP, Leticia Rossano, said the plan provided a solid basis for countries in the region to bolster their efforts, including strengthening cross-border collaboration. She said that would reduce the risks associated with sand and dust storms and minimise their impact on sustainable development. She added that having a political consensus in the vast Asia-Pacific region was an important breakthrough based on the strong evidence provided for the plan of action. Matt Wells, UN News.
This is the news in brief from the United Nations. The UN Secretary-General has condemned in the strongest terms a brutal attack on a Catholic church in southwest Nigeria at the weekend, which left at least 50 people dead and wounded dozens more. In a statement, Antonio Guterres described the attack in the St. Francis Catholic Church in Owe, Ondo State as heinous, as worshippers gathered on Sunday to celebrate Pentecost, an important date in the Christian calendar. According to reports, attackers infiltrated the congregation before shooting at people who'd gathered for Mass inside the church. Attacks on places of worship are abhorrent, the UN Secretary-General added, before urging the Nigerian authorities to spare no effort in bringing those responsible to justice. To date, no group has claimed responsibility for the attack, which is considered unusual for southwest Nigeria. It is a more peaceful region than the country's north, where there have been numerous kidnappings for ransom by bandits and past attacks on churches by separatists. Echoing Mr. Guterres' condemnation of the killings, the UN Alliance of Civilizations, UNAOC, called for the mutual respect of all religions and faiths and for greater communal efforts to foster peace. The UN agency is behind a plan of action to keep places of worship safe and to allow people of all faiths to practice their religions in peace. In light of the attack, UNAOC High Representative Miguel Moratinos urged all governments to support the plan's implementation. Renewed concern about desperate hunger levels in Somalia and the wider Horn of Africa now, amid reports that parents have had to bury their starving children by the roadside as they try to seek life-saving medical help. The alert on Tuesday from UN humanitarians follows 4 successive seasons of failed rains, a situation not seen in at least 40 years, which have left 386,000 children in acute need of life-saving treatment for severe malnutrition in Somalia alone. This is worse than in 2011, when famine claimed the lives of 250,000 in Somalia, most of them children. From the UN Children's Fund, UNICEF, here's Rania Dagash, Deputy Regional Director for Eastern and Southern Africa.
The lives of children in the Horn of Africa are also at an increased risk because of the war in Ukraine. And I think it's important to emphasize this because Somalia alone used to import 92% of its wheat from Russia and Ukraine. But supply lines are now blocked.
In addition to calling on the international community to provide more funding for emergency assistance, UN humanitarians have stressed that what is also needed is investment in resilience-building measures to save people's livelihoods and prevent them from having to leave their homes in search of food, water and healthcare. To Ukraine and the devastated port city of Mariupol, where worrying reports of cholera haven't yet been officially confirmed, the UN Health Agency said on Tuesday. Speaking to journalists in Geneva, Dr. Margaret Harris from the World Health Organization, WHO, said that the agency has previously issued warnings that the preventable disease could easily spread in Mariupol, where water and sewage pipes have been destroyed by weeks of shelling that followed the Russian invasion on the 24th of February. Cholera prevention and treatment kits have been put in place, along with preparation measures for vaccines, Dr. Harris said. She noted that Mariupol experienced a cholera outbreak in the summer of 2011. To date, the latest reports of the cholera outbreak have not been confirmed by laboratory analysis, she added. Daniel Johnson, UN News. This is the news in brief from the United Nations. The impact of the war in Ukraine has been hugely damaging to global food security, energy and finance, and it's speeding up. That's the message from UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres, who on Wednesday called for action to address lack of access to food this year and a possible lack of food full stop next year. With an additional 47 million people potentially facing severe food insecurity in 2023, Mr. Guterres renewed his call for the Russian invasion of Ukraine to end, to release food from the embattled country's ports. And despite the Russian aggression, the food and fertilizer that it also produces must be made available to the world again, despite the war, the UN chief said. To make this happen, Mr. Guterres has created a crisis response group on food, energy and finance, headed by top UN officials, Trade Chief Rebecca Greenspan and Relief Chief Martin Griffiths. In the past 10 days, they've shuttled between Moscow, Kiev, Ankara, Brussels and Washington, the UN chief said. But he declined to offer further details, insisting that speculation could put at risk millions of people around the world. Staying with ongoing international efforts to address growing concerns over global food security linked to war in Ukraine, a top UN official on Wednesday urged countries not to impose restrictions on the export of foodstuffs that are in such short supply elsewhere. Food insecurity and high prices can become a trigger for instability, said Kyu Dong-yu, Director General of the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO. Addressing the Mediterranean Dialogue on Food Crisis conference in Rome, Mr. Kyu insisted that we must keep the global food trade system open and ensure that agri-food exports are not restricted or taxed. The Mediterranean Sea region includes 22 countries on 3 continents, many of which rely on cereal imports from Ukraine to feed their population, the FAO top official said. Most countries in the region increased food imports to meet domestic consumption needs even prior to the war in Ukraine. Monkeypox infections in non-endemic countries have passed the 1,000 mark, and the risk of it now becoming established in some is real, the World Health Organization, or WHO, said on Wednesday. At a press conference in Geneva, Director General of the UN Health Agency, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, said that 29 countries where the virus does not usually circulate had confirmed cases of monkeypox. Here's WHO monkeypox expert Dr. Rosamund Lewis.
The cases that are being reported now are still primarily in the non-endemic setting among men and still primarily among men who have sex with men. There are a few reports now of cases amongst women and not that many. And at the moment, there is still a window of opportunity to prevent the onward spread of monkeypox in those who are at highest risk right now.
The sudden and unexpected appearance of monkeypox in these countries suggests that it may have gone undetected for some time, Tedros said, but he added that the virus could be prevented from establishing itself in non-endemic countries if those who became infected isolated themselves at home and avoided close contact with others. So far this year, Africa, where it's endemic, has seen more than 1,400 suspected cases of monkeypox and 56 people have died from it. The disease has been responsible for deaths across Africa for decades, Tedros said. Daniel Johnson, UN News.